It began with an ordinary morning in the studio of Richard Madeley. Coffee steaming, cameras primed, a crisp breeze under the air conditioning vents. But as the clock ticked toward showtime, something shifted. A current of urgency, a ripple in the day. The word had come in. Chaos at the border. Migrants. Thousands. Crisis. Richard sat at the anchor desk, co-host alongside his colleague. Their bright studio, normally full of sunshine and light-hearted segments, suddenly felt heavy. The topic flashed on the screen behind them. Migrant chaos. How did we get here? Producers whispered. The floor manager nodded. Cue the live feed. Richard cleared his throat. On the monitor, images of crowded processing centers, weary faces, barbed fences, and lines of hopeful arrivals. The migrant crisis was no longer a dark corner of policy discussion. It was now the story of the hour. Social media was alight. Viewers were tweeting, sharing clips, outraged, empathetic, angry. As Richard began to speak, his voice carried something different. Not the glib broadcaster's tone, but something raw, uncertain, urgent. What I'm seeing, he said, is a system creaking at its hinges, people arriving by the hundreds, by the thousands, men, women, children, hoping for sanctuary, for a new chance. And yet the wheels of our support, our welcome, our system of justice, they're grinding. They're grinding and screeching. The words came slower now, as if he was catching himself mid-thought. I've seen this for years, he went on. I've watched the footage, I've read the reports, but today, when I walked into the studio and looked at that backlog of faces, I realized this isn't something over there. It's here. It's us. It's our responsibility. Various guests appeared on screen. A minister, a humanitarian aid worker, a refugee who had arrived only last week. Richard listened while leaning forward, his hands clasped, his brow lined. Then he turned back to camera. I cannot stand here, in front of you, and pretend that everything is fine, because it isn't. Pause. And for many of you watching, I know you're furious. You're worried. You're tired. You feel, perhaps, you've been let down. I feel that too. In that moment, the quiet shift happened. The tweets began. Clips of Richard's pause, his gaze, his admission. This moment broke the internet, as one user wrote. Others reposted, Richard Madeley's heartfelt outburst over migrant chaos. The hashtag Madeley moment rose and soared. He rose from his chair, the studio lighting harsher than ever, throwing his profile into relief. Let's say the truth plainly, he continued. We cannot welcome everyone as we remind ourselves we should, unless we first fix the fundamentals. That means housing, that means fairness, that means compassion, that means order. Chaos is not kindness. Chaos is cruelty. His voice cracked, just once, as the refugee guest began to speak of the night sea crossing, the waves, the cold, the fear. Richard closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Then he opened them. Thank you for your bravery, for your survival. Your story will not be silenced. The live audience was silent. The studio lights dimmed slightly, the cameras rolled. Thousands watching at home felt the pull. They tweeted, they shared, they wrote. Online platforms exploded. Commentators, voices from every side. Some applauded Richard for breaking from the usual polished neutrality. Others lambasted him for stepping beyond his broadcasting lane. But no one ignored him. That was the moment. Later, after the show, back in the green room, Richard removed his earpiece and exhaled. His producer approached. "That was powerful," she said. He nodded. "We needed it," he replied quietly. They needed to hear something real. In the days that followed, social media lit up with memes, clip shares, quotes. "He said it. The broken system must be fixed," one caption read. The hashtag trended. Editorials echoed his words. The refugee guest's charity saw a surge of interest. Citizens tweeted their horror at waiting lists, overcrowded shelters, bureaucracy. Others posted pleas for calm, for better policy, for compassion. Richard returned to the studio the next morning. The topic? The same. But something had changed. Viewers tuned in with a new sense of urgency. The show's producers adjusted. Less glibness, more depth. For Richard himself, it had shifted how he felt on air. The polished veneer gave way to sincerity. He looked at the camera and said, "We owe them better, and we owe ourselves better." The story did not end that day. The migrant crisis carried on. The lines of arrivals, the debates, the politics, the human toll. But that hour, that broadcast, became a marker. A moment when a familiar face stepped off autopilot and spoke from the heart. When the internet paused, when the viewer at home thought, conversation, yes, but change? Across the digital world, someone typed, "Remember where you were when Richard Madeley broke the internet?" And we remembered.